Hello, everyone, and welcome. Thank you all so much for joining us today for this live stream event. My name is Alexia, and I am the program manager of the Microsoft Reactor Toronto. Um, I will be sharing session resources with you in the chat, but before we begin, I'd like to quickly review two items, our code of conduct and event guidelines. First, please take a moment to review our code of conduct. Microsoft Reactor seeks to provide a respectful environment for both our audience and presenters. We encourage engagement in the chat, but please be mindful of your commentary, remain professional and on topic. And secondly, our event guidelines. This session is being recorded and will be available on demand through the Microsoft Reactor YouTube channel in about 24 to 48 hours. I will be sharing the link in the chat for our channel. And if you have not been on a live stream through YouTube before, please note that you must create an account on YouTube in order to access and interact in the chat. You can set that up now. And if you're unable to use the chat but have questions, feel free to reach out to us through social media or on our website. Which brings us to today's session. Today is the last session of the .NET MAUI Summer Coding Adventure. And yes, summer is coming to an end. So to introduce the session today, I'm going to bring in our speakers, Bruno and Luis. Hello again. It's been a while.
Yes, hello everyone. Hey Alexia, hey Luis.
Hello Alexia, hey Bruno. Well, it's definitely quite some time since our last session. So yeah, how are you doing? How is everyone feeling about this event, about new projects? Yeah, what are you doing? Tell us in the chat.
Hey, I love that we have an extra session. By the way, Bruno here from Canada, from Microsoft. And hey, I love that we have an extra session because we initially have planned 4 sessions and then the audience asked for a new one. This one is the new one about talking about handlers. And if you want to know more, please let us know, because as far as I know, the summer ends on here in the North Hemisphere, ends on the 21, 22, the first 22nd. So we still have 10 more days if we want to do something. But no, super happy to be here to learn more about handlers. If we want to continue this summer coding adventure, we have 10 more days to do something else. So, Luis, what are handlers? Do you want to introduce yourself and let us know what is this MAUI handlers, whatever, is about?
Yes, of course. So first of all, my name is Luis Beltran. I am from Mexico. I am Microsoft MVP in AI, developer technologies, and also Azure. And well, I am doing a PhD in artificial intelligence, but I'm also a .NET developer, mobile developer. And well, since Xamarin, let's say, was the technology before .NET MAUI, one of the characteristics of this technology was that you can also customize or create new controls, like extend the Xamarin Forms platform to create native controls, like for Android only or iOS only. And this feature, of course, is quite important, because that way you can add custom behavior or custom, let's say, UI. But it was now in .NET MAUI, let's say, we have handlers which do the same thing, but there is an optimization, there is an improvement over, let's say, that feature. And we will talk about it, what challenges, let's say, there were, and what is the motivation behind, let's say, this new let's say implementation, not characteristics, because it existed, let's say, before in Xamarin Forms, but now it is, let's say, a new way to implement it. So, well, we have quite some friends here. Hello, Fisharp. Happy that you are with us again. Greetings from Argentina. So yeah, tell us where else you are joining from, and yeah, I think we can get started with our topic. What do you think, Bruno?
Yes, let's go for it. I was trying to open our YouTube because I don't have comments here, so I was trying to figure out my YouTube channel so I can go there, and was double factor whatever login. So yes, let's start with this one, and I will try to get to the comment section. And yes, if you can let us know where are you joining, that's will be amazing. Thanks.
Awesome. Okay, so let's get started. So as an introduction, as I was saying, yep, in Xamarin Forms, we had the custom renderers, let's say, technology, which basically was the way to implement native or platform controls. Of course, as many technologies, let's say Xamarin Forms offers a suite of views or controls like buttons, labels, and of course maybe even some extensions like the maps, so you can add a map in your application. There are, of course, other controls like the collection view, activity view. Yeah, but actually, Xamarin Forms or this API is a bit limited in the sense that the native platforms, Android, iOS, Windows, each of them has quite a lot of controls. There are some UI, some views that are not available in the general Xamarin Forms platform. For example, in the map, maybe you want to add a custom, let's say, pin, like when you tap, let's say, on the pin, you can add some custom image besides the typical address and maybe some logo or some icons. So you want to actually implement this view or this set of controls when you tap on that pin, right, or on any location in the map. With Xamarin Forms, let's say the control provided by the extension, you cannot do that, but you can create a custom renderer, which in essence, let's say, inherits from the map implementation, and you add your customization. Basically, you extend the functionality of this control. And to do that, there are like two important elements that come here. One of them is the renderer. Basically, the renderer is the one that is in charge of representing a control in some way, let's say in the UI. And this map renderer exists for every platform, right? So the Xamarin Forms maps is represented through the map renderer. Let's say it's an intermediate layer between this cross-platform control and the actual native control. For example, in Android, we have the map view control, which in an Android application, let's say if you want to write some native application in Xamarin Android or in Kotlin or in Java, you have the map view control. In Windows, you have map control, and in iOS, you have MK map view. So this is like the internal or native control. And the map renderer is, again, the intermediate layer, right, between the cross-platform control and the native control. And you have actually this renderer for each Xamarin Forms view. If you have entry, the entry, of course, is some kind of text box where the user can enter some information. Again, you have entry renderer for every platform. But then again, you can extend like the functionality, like to, for example, add some image or some specific background to your entry and so, right? So this way you can create something called the custom renderer. So yeah, you can create your own, let's say, implementation. And yeah, there were like specific steps to create these custom renderers, basically to extend the functionality of controls. However, there were some, let's say, issues. First of all, these custom renderers are tightly coupled to Xamarin Forms components. So yeah, you always need, let's say, the reference to Xamarin Forms namespaces or classes. So there is not at all like a native, truly native, let's say, implementation. For example, in Xamarin, in the button renderer, let's say this is another renderer. We have map renderer, entry renderer. Now imagine a button, right? In a button renderer, you have quite a lot of references to Xamarin Forms button class. And actually, many of the view classes are bindable objects. They implement iNotify property change, for example, right? Like when there is a change in the property. If you remember, in MVVM, we explained about that topic. Then, another important thing is that your custom renderer, let's say, you need to actually register it, right? One of the steps when you create a custom renderer is that you need to register it somewhere. And this uses, let's say, this is registered into the assembly, and getting a reference that is scanning the assembly to find a specific custom renderer is really slow, because Xamarin Forms, let's say, goes through and scans all the assemblies inside the, let's say, assembly application attributes and register it to the framework, so the other components can use it or represent it, right, in your application. But yeah, this operation is quite slow. And if you have a lot of custom renderers, if you have a lot of pages, components, of course, this has an impact in your application, the performance of your application. So yeah, also it is difficult to reach the native platform from the cross-platform, because you need like to write a lot of code. It adds complexity to access the native button or the native map from the cross-platform code. Actually, yeah, this custom renderers is one of the intermediate, let's say, topics when you are learning about the platform. Custom renderers, you like leave it for later. You first need to understand how is it to develop a Xamarin Forms application. Then once you get a good understanding about it, then you can go for custom renderers, for example, topic. Yeah, it needs a lot of, let's say, like knowledge and how is it working. So yeah, that's the thing. It adds complexity, and you need like to write a lot of code. So yeah, and here you have like some examples actually about all these problems or issues that we talk about it behind this architecture. As you can notice, some of the code is quite like large, right? A lot of namespaces and references. Yes. So, of course, .NET MAUI is let's say, evolution of Xamarin Forms, and some of the, let's say, talks when trying to bring the power of custom renders into .NET MAUI was okay, shall we continue doing this way, or maybe we can do it differently? So if you remember, in .NET MAUI, we have, let's say, a container, right? We have dependency injection built in. So this could be used to avoid, for example, the assembly scanning or the reflection at startup to find the different, let's say, custom classes that are um, injected like in our code. Now with the dependency injector, it is easier and simpler to find those references. So yes, there were some enhancement with the inversion of control. Also, our handlers are fast renderers, of course. This talks about implementation, because with handlers, we have now a simple way to consume platform-specific APIs. And what else? The structure is simpler compared to custom renderers. You will see there are again some specific steps. And again, I also understand that implementing a custom renderer takes some time to understand it. But once you get the catch, it is easy. You will see. And of course, the power that you add is that you can create your own controls that, let's say, the .NET MAUI platform does not like have by default. So yeah, the code is simpler, let's say, and you can actually bring, let's say, most of the code that you have from custom renderer to the handler, right? And now the organization is, let's say, changes also a bit, because first of all, you decouple renderers from summary forms. If you remember, one of the problems was that in renderers, in the native control, there was a lot of references to the summary forms platform. But now that is avoided. First of all, instead of a renderer, now we have handlers, right? Button handler for the different platforms, right? iOS, Android, Windows, Tizen, and the others. But you have, let's say, your view or your control like button. The button is in the Microsoft.maui.controls namespace. And this button is represented or can be represented by an interface. And because it is like represented, or it implements an interface, well, you can use dependency injection, you can use inversion of control to simplify accessing like this interface. You can create your own classes that implement this interface in order to either create new controls or extend the functionality of some control, like a button, map, or whatever you want, correct? You can still, of course, represent native controls. Button from Windows, app compact button from Android widgets, or different buttons in iOS, correct? So yeah, handlers are a new way to extend existing controls in .NET MAUI. We will see, or we will explain some topics in the next slide, some concepts, let's say, but basically the handler is in charge of applying the request from the cross-platform control to the native controls. And again, the main goal with .NET MAUI is to decouple the renderers, to invert the dependency tree, because the button from Microsoft.MAUI depends on the interface, and the interface is used by the native control. And the button handler only knows about an interface. So we remove the reference to Microsoft.MAUI controls or the Xamarin Forms controls, right? By the way, you can still create or use custom renderers in .NET MAUI. Yes, you can still bring those, but the recommended way, let's say, is to use handlers. And here we have some concepts. We will just mention them, but of course, the most important thing is to actually use them in the code. And yeah, after this, we will explain some steps and we will see it in code. So let's start with two basic concepts, a virtual view and platform view. If you have worked with custom renderers, and you can let us know in the chat, there were two, let's say, classes or members that you might remember, element and control. The element is replaced now by a virtual view, which basically is a reference to the cross-platform control, okay? The button from .NET MAUI or the entry or label, right? The ones that you know from the .NET MAUI. Then we have platform view, which, as the name suggests, represents the native control, right? The button from Android widget or the UI button from iOS SDK and so on, right? Okay. So we can access virtual view or platform view classes or members in our code, and you will see that we will have a lot of references to platform view. Then we have a mapper. There are two types of mappers: map for properties or map for commands. But basically, the mapper is a dictionary. The dictionary that, let's say, adds a relationship between cross-platform properties and native properties, right? Native implementations. Actually, not only properties, but also actions or commands, okay? Yeah, so the mapper is this dictionary where you add this relationship again, right? Like what is for the cross-platform and what is for native, right? You will see once I add this in the code. Then we already talked about the handler, which is like the main actor here. They handle, they communicate all changes that exist or that happen in the virtual view, in the cross-platform control, and they are applied to the native implementation. Of course, since the handler needs to manage or to know when there is some change, it implements some interfaces like on element property change, or is the replacement, sorry, of this on element property change that we knew in the custom renderers. We have then some methods like create platform view, which is of course the method that initializes the native control instance. Typically in create platform view, you, let's say, add some basic initialization, but then you have connect handler. Connect handler is basically like, okay, we have the native implementation, we want to initialize it, right? And here you add much more details about the initialization, maybe set up some variables or some values and so, right? And this connect handler is when you safely want to remove, destroy, dispose the native control in order to free up some resources or memory, right? So you disconnect from everything that you want. And then this leads us to the steps, to some code that, yeah, I will be showing to you. But before we move here, I would like to ask Bruno if there are some questions or comments
yes,
about it.
We have one. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Yes, I have some issues, audio issues, but I'm back. So yeah, we have one from PySharp that he asks basically we can implement a custom way to translate any custom implementation for a target platform by injecting it into a mapper. So it's kind of a double twist.
It's okay. Yes, that is correct. We can implement either properties or also actions. You will see some comments.
Perfect.
Awesome.
That's it.
Okay.
If you want to, yes, all yours.
Perfect. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so let's go to the steps. Let's go to see some actual code. So there are some steps, let's say 4, and it can be as extended or as short as we want. So the first step is to create a new class in the cross-platform, let's say, implementation, right? This class has two requirements. First of all, it it inherits from a view or from the component that we want to extend. How do we know which to extend from? If we want to create a new control, something that does not exist in .NET MAUI, we inherit from view. View is the, let's say, general class for controls. But if we want to take some control that already exists, but we want to add more features, we want to increase the functionality, we want to add new properties, we want to display something new, then we actually inherit from that component, right? Maybe a class that inherits from entry or from button or from image. Well, actually, the second requirement or the second requirement, or actually the second, let's say, optional step or would be to actually create an interface before, and that would be even better, right? We create an interface, the interface implements iView, then our class implements this interface. And of course, in this class, we need to create or to include bindable properties, right? You know that when you create some bindable property, you actually add, yes, the bindable property, but there is also a public property, right? For example, you see here some example is beating property, which is a bindable property, and a Boolean property is beating. And with the get, with the set, right? So you add this pair, and you can do it for more properties. What will happen later when we consume, let's say, this control heartbeat view? We will have an is beating property that we can, let's say, add some value in the SAML, right? A button has, background color property, text property, and different members, right? So now we are creating some heartbeat view control, and the is beating property is exposed in our SAML. Well, for this, just give me a second. I have a new project, right? Let's say I already have the code, and take a look at this controls folder. We have iDraw and draw, right? So if you remember, I told you, okay, so for step 1, optionally, you can create an interface, and that's exactly what I did here. I have public interface, iDraw. Let's say, actually, in the end, we want to create some area for where the user can draw something, like creating a control for signatures, right? In .NET MAUI, we don't have a control that allows user to freely draw, clear, or save the picture, right? So we can create a new one. So we want to create a new control, right? So in this case, I create this interface, I draw, which implements I view. Then I define one property, draw color. Maybe we want to, it's like the ink color, right? Blue, red, or whichever color. And we also define, let's say, two methods, clear and save. Then in the class, actual class draw, we have the second, this is, okay, yeah. Yeah, I have draw, which implements I draw and also extends from view, which of course is aligned to this requirement that I mentioned. And here you can observe we have bindable property, which is the draw color property, then the full property, draw color, and we also have the clear and save methods that were defined previously in the interface. But please notice, of course, clear and save are actions, right? So one way to implement them with these handlers, let's say technology, is that you can add event handlers for those, let's call them clear requested and save requested. And the code is, let's say, quite the same. Like you can invoke this event handler. In this case, we are sending no arguments because we don't need them, but of course we can also add them. And later in the implementation, we need to define some method that receives those arguments. But for the moment, this is some general code, right? We invoke the event handler, passing the reference to the class instance, and then we have a handler object. Actually, you can observe that this handler, where is this handler defined? This handler is part of the view, right? Because if I control click here, yeah, even though we don't have that property, this handler is already part of every view, right? Every visual element. So the handler invokes, and then we pass like the message, right? What action was executed, clear or save. This is something general, right? So we have properties, we have actions, correct? This is step number one, and we do this for every, let's say, control that we want to kind of implement. Step number two, and this is where things start becoming a bit, let's say, complicated. But again, it is just while you learn about this technology. We create a second class. This class is a view handler implementation where you define two dictionaries. Well, one dictionary and optionally second, but it depends. This dictionary is the mapper, or these dictionaries, sorry, are the mappers, right? Property mapper and maybe a command mapper if you define actions. In our case, yes, we have actions, right? Because we created properties and also methods. So in this case, we are creating two dictionaries, property mapper and command mapper. But there is an important requirement. Our class must be partial, okay? And this is the foundation of everything, because later we are creating native implementations, and those are also partial, of course, with the same name and within the same namespace. But we will move, or I will explain that later, okay? So in our case, I create this handlers namespace or folder, whatever. I have iDraw handler and draw handler. And again, this is where things start to become a bit complicated. Right now, don't mind this, let's say, namespaces. You don't need to like worry a bit about them. It is true that step number 2, you start with some code, but later you come back, okay? Because we still have not created these specific classes, right? For the moment, just learn that you are creating a class. Let's call it, let's say, draw handler. Well, yeah, in this case, again, I created some interface. So we have iDraw handler. Let's call it iDraw handler, which inherits from or implements iView handler. We define 2 elements, a virtual view and the platform view. Do you remember this? Because we mentioned them before or earlier with the concepts or terminology here. Just a second here. We mentioned that there would be 2 views, virtual view and platform view. Okay, so here we define them. The virtual view, as we said, is the cross-platform definition. And what is our control that we are creating? We are creating an iDraw control, okay? It is an interface, but you get the idea. It's a new control. And the platform view is a platform view. And this is where it gets tricky. What is a platform view? The platform view is a reference to some native class that we are creating later. I told you that later we would come back. We have not created these classes yet, but you understand now that this platform view is a reference to some native control or native class, correct? As I said, later we are creating, you can see this draw view Android. This is a class defined in the native Android folder. We have draw view iOS for the native iOS folder, right? So again, this code, you don't know it yet, but later you will define it, right? But that's the idea. This is a reference, and as we said here, to the native control. Of course, this class is to something that we are creating later. But if you are extending, I don't know, an Android button, the platform view will be the reference to Android X.widgets.button, for example, right, from Android. And yeah, this is simpler, right? So if you are creating a new control, you need to later come back to complete this. If you are extending a control, you already have, or you need to just find what is the namespace of that native control that you are just extending. That's it. But we are adding these compiler directives. This is important, right? These compiler directives, of course, define, okay, if we are in an iOS application, the platform view is a reference to some control in iOS. If we are in Android, reference to an Android element, and so, okay? So here we have. If you later, let's say, are interested in .NET MAUI handlers, you go to different blogs, to different posts, or even the documentation, you might find this code inside actually the class. I don't like it at all because it adds more complexity. For me, it is easier to get a reference, let's say, here in the namespace part, because then you can just focus on the code. You avoid it, let's say, or send the complexity to somewhere else, not in the code, but it is up to you, right? But you will see that, yeah, these compiler directives are kind of needed.
Yes,
Yes,
two cents there. If you sorry to interrupt, but yes,
okay.
This is kind of old school. I mean, I've been seeing this compiler directory since early 2000, first days of Visual Studio and .NET and more. And yes, you get used to this, and you don't care. This is not clean code at all. But hey, it's a cool way also to understand how the compiler works. And remember, handlers are not a 100 level topic. It's a little, I would say 200, 300 maybe. So we need to deal with this. And also we need to understand that, okay, if iOS and Mac Catalyst, you are going to have platform view, which refers to the dry view iOS, but for Android, we have another one. And it makes sense. I mean, it's not nice code. I understand what you said. I am also in your team, but also you don't need to bother about this. I mean, if someone has a better idea, let's talk with the .NET team and see how we can build the rebuild team to do this. But this has been around for a very, very long time, as far as I remember.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, like if we need to do it where it would impact less the readability of our code. So, okay, namespaces maybe, because within the code, it's like, okay, blah, 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 then our main code. But then again, some if, yeah. But yeah, on the other hand, as Daryl says, this brings some advantage, like
yeah, Daryl nailed it. You can do this in a reflection, whatever way, but yes, doing this compiler if and else and whatever directives is going to produce faster code. That's for sure, because you use literally the right library to do the right code in the right platform. So it's all boom, 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 wins everywhere. Yes,
yeah,
Daryl, you are right.
Exactly. It's for the improvement. Okay, so this is the interface, and then of course we have the class, right? We have the draw handler, which is actually the main element that we talk about it in step number 2. So in this case, then again we also have the compiler directive here, but it's for the platform view. It is the same, but now we are talking about the class that implements the interface, of course. But please notice in our partial class, draw handler, that we are defining 2 dictionaries. Again, you will for sure need the property mapper, and if you are defining actions, then you also create this second dictionary, right? The command mapper. So we have this one, and you have a new property mapper, right? With the and here we add the let's say reference to the cross-platform view, which is iDraw, the main interface, the first interface that we created, and the iDraw handler, which is the previous interface. If you are not doing interfaces, it is just the cross-platform class and the handler cross-platform, right? So you will like repeat draw handler again. But this is, of course, we mentioned that there is a dictionary, right? So we need like a key and some like value. We mentioned that this dictionary maps like cross-platform and native elements. So in this case, we have the key. The key would be like the name of the property, iDraw .draw color. And then we have this draw color. This draw color is an element that we define later here in our view handler class, right? So it's a reference, let's say, it's like a delegate, right? Here we have the method. And for commands, we do the same. If you remember, we defined 2 actions like clear and save, to erase or to actually store the drawing from the user. Okay. So we have the key name of iDraw clear, and we have onClear, which is a reference to this method. And the same for the save one, right? So again, it is mapping. And what do we do? Well, we have a virtual view, we have the platform view. This, you will like have the same code. We have a constructor that takes the property mapper and the command mapper, or only the property mapper if you only use it. Then we have draw color, and just a second, this onSave and onClear. What do we do in draw color and this same method? We just have generic code. For example, in draw color, handler, platform view, and we have, for example, paint color, which is like all the views from native have this paint color. So paint color is draw color, which comes from our, let's say, cross-platform class. This is a property. This is a property that we created earlier. Here it is, right? And we convert this color from cross-platform to the native implementation. Let's say .NET MAUI already has this method to convert a Microsoft MAUI color into the native color, like for Android or for iOS. So we don't need like to do anything else. This is quite simpler. But of course, they don't have native like methods for clearing and saving. So in this case, we just add, let's say, this instruction: handler platform view save and handler platform view clear. What does it mean? It means that later in the native implementation, we are defining a native save method or a native clear method. And it will have platform specific code. How to store some file in Android, how to store some file in iOS. Here, of course, we will need to consult the documentation for Android, right? Or the documentation from Xcode to or Swift, right? Yeah, we write this Swift code or Kotlin code, but in C#, of course. But yes, to store some file in Android, how to do it, but of course with C#. So later we will implement these two methods in the native implementation. Then we also have these two methods that I mentioned, connect handler and disconnect handler, which you can just simply say base.connect handler. Again, this is from the platform view like class, and then disconnect handler, right? Dispose, okay, free up all the resources. Basically, you will have this code in all your controls. So, but maybe you want to initialize something else. Okay, yeah, you can do it. Then this was cross-platform, and now we go to the native. We just need 2 more steps, but they are kind of easy to explain. In step number 3, we create the same class, like something view handler, right? But now in the native folders, Android, iOS, right? The trick here is that it must be partial class, and it must be within the same namespace. Of course, this is obvious, but this is important. So it knows that it is actually extending what was defined in the cross-platform, but now with native implementation. So, for example, I have this draw handler Android. I have this file, draw handler Android. The name is not important, like file name, but you notice that I have draw handler, partial class, and please notice the namespace. The namespace in this case is handlers app.handlers, and it is the same that I defined here. Just a second. Yeah, handlers app.handlers. So yeah, this is the important thing. We share the same namespace, and then this one extends from view handler with the iDraw, which is the cross-platform, and the native control. Draw view Android is a control that or a class that we create here, right? Draw view Android. What about draw handler iOS? We have draw handler, partial class, same namespace, extends from view handler. We have the cross-platform interface and a native class, draw view iOS. Instead of native class or that we create, we can also have the UI button from iOS if we are extending something that already exists. But in this case, we are creating a new control, correct? And basically here, because we are in the cross-platform, in the native platform, we write, just a second, yeah. We write a specific platform-specific code. In this case, for the draw handler in Android, I just override, let's say, the create platform view, so we get a reference, because I have all the functionality in this draw view Android class. Here in the draw Android class, please notice that I have this path is from Android graphics. This is paint Android graphics color, right? I have a canvas, a bitmap, because if you remember, I told you that we're creating some control where the user can draw. So here I have, if you find how to allow the user to paint something in your application in Android, you will find a lot of code. All you need to do is like to convert it into C#. Yes. So this code is specific for an Android application. Even, of course, the touch events are mentioned. If we go to Draw Handler iOS, we will have, Draw View iOS, we have code specific for iOS applications, UI image view, and so, right? And also touch moves and different methods. In this case, you need to like know or to find code from the different platforms, right? So this is like this part can be as complex or as simple. It all depends on the native implementation. But this is like where all the power, let's say, resides, right? And we also have, please notice, clear method and save method. Did you remember that I mentioned? Okay, and it will execute clear and save native methods. Here they are, and the same goes for Android. Yes, we have clear and we have save methods, right? Yes, and actually the step number 4 is just to register the handler in MAUI program. In this case, it is quite easy because in the MAUI program, we just add configure MAUI handlers, and we have a type of draw and draw handler, which are the control and the handler implementation. And we repeat, we add more handlers if we add more controls. And well, let's show it so you can see it in action. So the idea here is that we are creating some, let's say, canvas, some area where the user can like sign, for example. Typically, we have some application and we ask the user to sign, right? Draw some signature. Just a second, let me do it this one larger. So yeah, here the user with the, let's say, finger, they can like draw whatever, right? I can click on this clear method or button and everything is erased. Then if, let's say this is my signature, I click on save. Okay, I did not show any message, but if I go to the files, yeah, you can see that this, let's say, picture is, let's say, already there. If I come back, I clear it, I create a new one, like let's say this square, I save it. Then if I go to the files application, we have new file, right? And all the communication, how to consume actually this control. In the draw page, we have a reference to the controls class, and here we have our, let's say, own control. Draw, we call it draw, and we have the draw color property. And because it is a view, .NET MAUI, let's say, a view, we also share some other properties that we did not define, but all views have, like size, name, where it should be displayed, center, left, right, etc. And then we have, in this case, I am not using MVVM, right? But we have two buttons, clear and save. And in the clear and save, I am just invoking draw clear, draw view, save. And this is where the fun begins, because it sends the, or it invokes the event handler, and this one communicates to the native implementation. So yeah, basically it connects everything that we defined previously in these like 4 steps. But yeah, let's say I did not write anything, but let's say the complexity kind of resides in the native implementation. It all depends on what we want to do and what is the code like required for it. And of course, for that, this like draw view, this is not exactly about .NET MAUI, but about the Android platform, how to do what you are thinking, right, in Android. And now find or write the code for iOS and then for Windows and so, right? So yeah, that's the main idea.
Hey, that's super cool. We have a couple of questions. I know that we
Yes,
only
yes,
have
yes.
5 more minutes,
Yeah.
but C# says that, hey, we are doing Android here, which makes sense. But if we are doing Windows, we
Mhm.
also want to do native version. I mean, we have C#. So what is the compiler options or whatever for Windows?
Okay, yeah, that is a good question. Yes, it is C#, but in Windows, we let's say the controls are, let's say, represented by a WinUI. Unfortunately, in the WinUI implementation, there is no canvas, or there is no control, native control, to define some drawing area. So that's why I don't have, let's say, the Windows representation. But because let's say this example, I did it earlier with custom renderers in Xamarin Forms, and for Windows we had UWP, and in UWP there was a control to, let's say, paint or draw that, so it was easy. But let's say that was my only like problem or issue, that in UWP that control does not exist in WinUI. So yeah, this code lacks of the Windows representation, which then again, when you wrote custom renderers, you also like had like, okay, do I have to write both Android and iOS implementation, even though I am only targeting Android? No, you don't have to. If you are not compiling, you are not doing anything for iOS, no, you don't need to add the code for that. The same applies here in handlers. In this case, I did not show Windows because of that. If I run it, for sure I will get an error.
Yes, so Fisher says, yes, we eventually have a Windows version. That makes sense.
Yes, because yeah, we are talking about the controls. Yes, correct.
Yes.
Maybe the code will be quite similar because it is C#, but the UI, of course.
Yes. And hey, David is asking if we have a repo with the demo with this.
Yeah. That's a good question. Okay, I just need some, let's say, few minutes to like upload it. But you can visit my repository, and maybe in 10 minutes it will be here. So I will share the link in the chat, let's say, to my GitHub repository. Then you will find it like in 10 minutes, the most recent one. You will find it there. Yeah, I will share it here.
Yes, and the latest question that we have here, it's an unrelated but related question about if we tested the Visual Studio Code Station for MAUI, which is great. I basically said that, yes, it's an amazing, on top of an amazing product, we want to do something. We are probably going to do something in the future. I don't want to jinx ourselves, and I don't want to share details.
No spoilers.
But there is something there for sure that we are going to do. And hey, if we have a lot of requests and still in the summertime, we may do something here also for
yes, but I know where this question comes from, because there was an announcement that VS Code for Mac will be like discontinued. It will not be available like in 1 year or so. So let's say Mac or developers that use a Mac computer now should switch, let's say, to VS Code. I wanted to actually show it, but today was some kind of a busy day, so maybe for future presentation we will show how to do it. But yeah, it looks promising, as you also say. But of course, there are a lot of features to add.
And we want to do something. We want to probably set up something in the future to show it, because yes, Visual Studio Code is a happy place, and hey, if we can add C# and MAUI also in the happy place, it will be a great a great experience. So that's kind of where we are right now. We are at the end of the time. We're just sharing the repo. As Luis says, when we finish, he's going to push everything to GitHub. So it's in there. And friendly reminder to everyone that we share the links to our survey. Please give us some feedback here about what you like, don't like, what you want to see in the next one, what else we can do to make it better. We really, really appreciate your feedback. And also the final reminder that if you want to follow us in X, formerly known as Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and we are in a lot of places, please join our community. There are more events there. And Luis, as usual, it's a pleasure to have you here. I am always learning about .NET with you, so this is super cool.
Thank you very much again for the invitation to you, Bruno, and also to Alexia. I'm happy to share, to discuss about these topics, and see you next week with the Spanish version of it.
Goodbye, everyone. See you next one.
Have a nice day. Thank you for joining.